we're in the studio. This is our 10th full length. Time just kind of flies by. I feel like it hasn't even been that long. I love being done with a record. For me, I'm more of a sort of person where I love touring more than I love being in the studio. But I think that obviously recording records are important. The hardest part is, as a bass player, when we're in a room and we're writing songs and we're doing pre-production, we really are concentrating on whether the drums are the way they should be, whether the songs are the right speed, because once you go into a studio, you track the drums first. So we make sure that the drums are on par. So Chad's the main songwriter, so he kind of always, he knows how the songs go in his head. So we're in pre-production, it's like, hey, here's the notes to play. I know the notes to play, but I don't always know progression. So once I get in the studio, it's harder for me because I'm trying to figure out what I was really supposed to be playing the whole time, and not just what I thought I was supposed to be playing. So then I start to get in my own head. That's why I get a little stressed out in the studio. It's been going great so far. It's cool to be with Steve Evans this time around. You're always a little nervous going into doing a record when you have a new producer. But he's very comfortable to be around. He mixed From the Screen to Your Stereo Part 3, so he was already familiar with our band, and so far it's been great.
Just so you know, Ian is so prepared for the studio, he actually has Studio 2019 picks to prepare for the occasion. That's how.
If you really look at the pick, on the back, it's got a little tuning peg from a bass. The reasoning is that I will never tune my own bass in the studio, as you can see, because if the album comes out and then something's out of tune on the bass, I'm like, wasn't my fault, I didn't tune it. So it's got a tuning peg on the back, and then the front has a little logo that Jordan drew, which has a little burger and fries next to it. This is my studio bass. I got this, we recorded Coming Home. We were finished recording. I think we had done 17 songs, and then this bass shows up and we're like, oh, let's just plug it in and see how it sounds. So we plugged in and we're like, oh, that sounds so much better than our other basses. So we retracked 14 songs with this bass, and I've used this on every recording since Coming Home. But the only problem is we went to plug it in yesterday for the first song and the intonation was off and we couldn't figure out what was wrong. So we used this red bass for the first song until we got this bass fixed. And now we'll probably use this for at least the rest that are tuned in E. The only thing is, I've been sober for almost 5 years and this one has pot leaves on the frets. So it's in memory of, because they're not going away.
You got a little Marilyn Monroe thing going on right now.
Yeah, kind of nice.
Now you're fringe.
I figure I'm going really bald back here. I always wanted long hair. So my wife cut her hair short and I'm like, well, now I'm growing mine long.
Now I'm growing mine long.
When we're in the studio, Chad is the main songwriter. He's a better bass player than I am. We both have different styles, but he started first as a bass player. So with me, I always have this vision of like, okay, I feel like something could happen on this part here. But in my brain, I don't understand like scales and like writing songs. I'm more of like a visual bass player. So if someone looks at me and says, hey, play this, I could sit there and look at them and kind of figure it out, write down like tablature and then kind of memorize it. Whereas Chad's the kind of musician where when he picks up a bass and his fingers know where to go. As a guitar player and playing leads, his fingers kind of just walk where they're supposed to go. So we'll kind of get through the basis of a song. We'll just do like a basic track. Then we'll kind of listen down and Chad will say, well, I hear something on this part, I hear something on this part. He'll plug a bass in, he'll play along with the track and kind of write like a cool little part. Then he'll look at me and say, okay, play this. So then I'll look at what he's playing, write down the tablature, and then plug my bass in and record the parts. I never have like an ego where it's like, oh man, I have to write my own bass lines. I want to record stuff that sounds the best and what's best for the record. So the fact that Chad writes most of the bass parts, to me, I don't really care. What I care about most is that I want to be the one that plays it on the album. You know, he'll sit and he'll write cool stuff. I'll tab it out and then I'll go and record it. I think it's most difficult for Chad in the studio because he kind of has to write everything, and everyone's kind of like, you know, if a vocal part's wrong, he's the one that's got to say, hey, Jordan, you're supposed to be doing this, or hey, Ian, you're rushing this part, like don't play it like that, play it like this. So it's kind of like he plays bass like a guitar player though, so it's kind of taking his idea and then playing it the way that I would play it. So Chad for me is like, he's very helpful in the studio, but then there's times where you're kind of like sometimes he plays something that's easy for him to play but it's difficult for me to play, so I'll be trying to play it, I'll be trying to read the tablature, but I can't read it quick enough to play it. So that's when he's like, listen man, look away from the paper for a second. Just look at the part. But like, just don't worry about the paper, just look at me. And then I'll be like, oh, all right. So I kind of write stuff down mainly so that when the recording's done and 4 months from now we're going to play these songs live and I go, I don't remember what I played. So I really write it down for later. So when we're getting ready to play stuff live, I can go back and refigure out what I played. Because the second the song's done, I already forgot what I played on the last song. That's how my memory works. And that's what happens when you smoke pot for as long as I did. Your memory doesn't really function as well as it should. The third song finished. And there's more left to go. I always get super stressed out in the studio, so every time I finish a song, it makes me that much happier. My favorite part of the studio is when I'm done. Anxiety, just pressure to be perfect. When you're playing a show, the show's over, no one remembers what's there. But when you're in the studio and you're recording, the recording's always there. So if you mess up, people are going to hear it over and over again.
You know what you do? You put a sticker on there when you're done.
Nice.
So Chad gets a bunch of stickers and he puts them over there, and everyone's supposed to like pick their stickers. But I kind of went through yesterday and I took a little secret.
Oh, you got your own little stash.
Little secret stash of some of the ones I like.